Good afternoon, my conscious co-creators. Welcome to another edition of the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. I am very, very pleased that you are here with me today. I've got a couple of guests I am dying to bring on to the show. So I'm going to make this quick. But first, of course, we always have our blog post from a couple of years ago, just taking these in order. I was actually going to skip my blog this week, but then I saw which one came up in the order, and I was like, this is perfect for what we're going to be talking about. So I said, let me go through this, but I got to go through this quick because I really want to bring on my guests. I got tons of questions for them. So this week's blog post is entitled, Having Patience with Our Healing Process Will Serve Us Well. We all want to make big leaps, to move forward on our healing path quickly and get to the point of feeling better as soon as possible, wanting some relief from our suffering. There is nothing wrong with wanting things to change right away, though the reality is that healing takes time. It happens in small steps. As one builds on top of the other, we may not see the progress. So it feels like we are not making any headway on our challenges. Yet the truth is that each small step is a big step forward. And every time we show up for ourselves, we are actually making a difference in our lives. Being impatient comes from having suffered for so long, for we make effort after effort and still we are suffering. Just as when we water a seed waiting for it to sprout, patience will serve us. Nature just works that way. We water and water and water the seed. Nothing seems to be happening. Yet underneath the surface, the roots are starting to grow. The seed is turning into a plant until one day, after what seems like an eternity to us, a stem comes up through the ground. It starts off so small, almost too tiny to see, and it starts to grow and grow until we have a beautiful plant before us. This is how our healing journey works. So much is happening under the surface each time we make an effort, even when it seems like nothing is changing for us. We are actually feeding the change we want to see until that day when all our effort pays off and suddenly we feel the shift. We see a change within us that we never noticed before. Our life shifts before our eyes and we come to our hearts. It may have taken longer than we wanted, but it happened sooner than we thought. Now we see how all those small steps added up to a big shift in our lives. And we can be grateful for the journey. So I wrote this blog post a couple of years ago because a number of people I'd been working with at the time on their healing journey were all like, "Oh, I just want to feel better. Take me deeper. I want to go really deep in my process. Oh, I just want to feel better. I just want relief." And I had so much empathy for them because I know they had been suffering for so long. And at the same time, I know that they weren't seeing those little shifts that were happening in the process, and that they were so focused on getting to that point where they just feel good to be alive that they missed all the steps and the results that they had taken on their healing journey, on that path. And so the just the imagery that I know is used so frequently about watering the seed and waiting for that to turn to a plant, So much is happening under the ground that we don't see, that we don't feel, until one day we look back and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe how much has changed. Oftentimes I say to people, look, it took 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years to get where you are today. It's going to take a little while to unwind that. And so patience is really our friend when we start on this healing journey. And so that's why I wrote this blog post kind of in response to so many people just coming in and just, oh, I just want to feel better. I want to feel better. I want to feel better now, today. And I'm like, we will get there. We will get there. Might not happen as quickly as you want, but it'll happen faster than you think. And so that's where this blog post came from. And this is why I couldn't skip this one, because this is just so perfect for my guests today. And of course, you can always find my blogs at my personally branded website, theconsciousconsultant.com, and of course on the station's website, talkradio.nyc/blog. All right. It is now my pleasure to welcome to the show both Norma and Nisha Burton, co-authors of the transformative new book, Navigating Liminal Realms. Of this book. Together, they explore the mysterious in-between spaces of human experience, the thresholds between the seen and the unseen, waking and dreaming, life and death, and how these liminal realms can become gateways for healing, creativity, and spiritual awakening. With over 30 years of experience apprenticing with Indigenous elders and holding advanced degrees in Buddhist psychology and shamanic tradition, Norma brings profound insight into trauma healing, shadow work, and the power of mythic understanding. Her Journey to Completion methodology and Circle of Trust Healing Center have supported countless individuals in transforming pain into purpose. Nisha, an award-winning filmmaker and dreamwork specialist, weaves her expertise in lucid dreaming, storytelling, and emerging technologies to illuminate how imagination and consciousness intersect in modern life. Welcome to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Norma and Nisha.
We're so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. I usually like starting off just talking a little bit of sort of your background and the journeys. I mean, you've worked with Indigenous peoples. You've been around this dream work, drumming work, working with plant medicines. But what got you to say, like, we want to write a book about how to really navigate these spaces? Why did what was the germination, the seed of saying, like, let's write a book together?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So we're mother-daughter, and it's really beautiful to be able to have a lineage and to be able to combine our talents together in order to bring forth the message that's in our book. We wrote one book before this too called Lucid Dreaming, Lucid Living, and that's a book and oracle deck that teach the skills of lucid dreaming through the intuitive art of pulling oracle cards. And
Uh-huh.
so that was a beautiful first way that we came together. And my mom was able to weave in her wonderful psychological knowledge and shadow work and trauma healing expertise, along with my lucid dreaming expertise and journeys. And so being able to share that was beautiful, bringing it into the world. Now, the second book, we wanted to build on that, and
Mm.
especially because she does and has done for many years drumming journeys as a way to bring people from ordinary reality into non-ordinary reality, into the dream time. And as you've heard, I specialize in lucid dreaming, and that's another way to bring people from an ordinary dream state into this lucid, heightened dream state. So we really wanted to compare and contrast those two states, which I don't think has been done anywhere else before. And so that was one purpose in being able to to write this and bring our two areas of expertise and specialization together in that way. And then also, there's a lot of interest right now in altered states of consciousness, especially through psychedelics. And my mom has worked extensively here in Oregon in the psychedelic renaissance that's happening because psilocybin-assisted therapy was legalized here.
Yeah.
And we saw the need for people to know how to navigate their psyches. That's why psychonavigation is a term that we use,
Mhm.
because more and more people are going into these altered states, are going into their psyches, but they don't really have the precursor training of how to do that in a skillful way. And we believe that really working with the dream time, working with altered states through drumming journeys, and this pathway that the journey to completion, which is my mom's work, lays out, is some of that precursor training to be able to do altered state journeys in a good way.
Yeah, yeah. So Norma, let me ask you, because I'm really big on defining terms so that we know what we're talking about. So the title of the book is Navigating Liminal Realms. What is a liminal realm? It may seem like obvious, but I'm like, let's define that.
Well, liminal means on the edge of, so
Mm,
go to the edge of town and you'd
hmm
be in a liminal realm. Or you could go into a movie theater and watch a movie, and that could be a liminal realm. But the liminal places in our own consciousness are those places that we haven't fully explored, that are between the realms of consciousness and unconsciousness or superconsciousness. So shamans of old tended to live in the liminal space on the edge of town, so that people would have to go out to the edge,
All right.
away from their structure of their dominant society life, to find the shaman, to go into an exploratory state. So liminal means that, it's a place that we are compelled to go to search for the mystery, or to search into the shadow, or to find,
Mm.
a doorway into a deeper place in ourselves.
Right, right. So this is really about finding the liminal spaces within ourselves.
Yes.
Though the external can sometimes support that, as in times of old. And in this case, that the external stimulus could be a drum journey, could be a plant medicine ceremony, or could be working in lucid dreaming.
Exactly. Right.
Okay. And you've been around this work for a long time. Um, it must have been very gratifying when Oregon legalized psilocybin, and seeing the renaissance, and now Colorado, and I think New Mexico, it just decriminalized it, and more states. I know New York State is looking at potentially psilocybin for medical use. New Jersey is. There are a number of states moving in that direction. Um, what do you think really started to get us to the tipping point where enough people in society said these kinds of tools are important enough that we need to explore them, and not look at them as illicit drugs?
Great question. In my youth, I was one of fewer people that felt compelled to go searching for this deep wisdom path. And before there were cell phones or computers or anything, I was going by writing letters to South America and Central America, and finding the wisdom elders to talk to and work with. So now, in this generation of young people, so many are feeling compelled to go to the Amazon, or, to seek out wisdom figures to help them. They're born into an era when, to speak of it astrologically, Pluto is their ruling sign. So they are compelled to go into the underworld and seek the transformation and help the planet go through this deep transformational time that we're in. So, right, the evolution of consciousness is taking place in
Mhm.
humanity, and compelling people to seek connection with our greater selves, with the consciousness of the universe that ultimately is love, so there's this draw to understand more and to realize our capacities for creating reality. So I'm thrilled that the United States healers and people in power are realizing the importance of these ancient medicines. These medicines are a whole consciousness, each one of them is a consciousness that is given to humans to help us, to teach us. So I hope that as people approach these medicines, that they're going to do it with the lineage available of all of the ancestors that have been expert in guiding people in these realms. So that's, again, one of the reasons for writing our book, because we want to emphasize to people that there are these teachings available from ancient times as to how to interact with the plant medicines and with consciousness. So I'm thrilled that this is happening. And I was actually on the Oregon Rules Committee for the state as one of the therapists who helped to shape how this would unfold in the state. So
wonderful.
I'm very involved in, watching how it all takes place. And it's been a very good unfolding of it. And many people are taking advantage of a well-held container, with therapists present and being able to do it in this safe way that we've tried to construct in our state
Wonderful.
process.
Wonderful. I remember in one ceremony, someone once said, I'm a divine being giving a divine being to ingest.
Ooh, I like that.
I just thought, oh, that was beautiful. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'd like to just talk briefly about sort of what is the commonality, because you talk about, three distinct endeavors in the book, the lucid dreaming, drum journeying, and working with plant medicines and psychedelics. So I'd like to talk about, like, how are these things interrelated? Like, how are they similar? And then I want to start to dive into some of the methodology and your completion method, journey to completion, which I think is beautiful. Okay.
Sounds good.
Wonderful. So everyone, please stay tuned. You're listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. We do this every Thursday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on talkradio.nyc and all over social media. And we'll be right back with my guests, Norma and Nisha Burton, author of the book, Navigating Liminal Realms, in just a moment.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
And welcome back to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. We're speaking this hour with Norma and Nisha Burton, authors of the book, co-authors of the book, Navigating Liminal Realms. So, in the book, you talk about sort of three distinct methodologies: lucid dreaming, drum journeys, and working with psychedelic medicines. How are these three things similar? Because, on first blush, they don't necessarily look so similar, but let's dive into that.
Absolutely. So back to the title, liminal realms, they all do take you into this liminal state, this place of transformation, where you come into contact with your psyche, with your inner self, and what we call the I-thou relationship, which is so important to establish, especially with the first two, with lucid dreaming and drumming journeys. What they're doing is connecting you with this part of yourself that is you could call your higher self, your greater self, your intuition. And by establishing that, then you're ready to interact with the third consciousness of the plant medicine. So a lot of people miss this. They dive right into interacting with this other consciousness. And especially plant medicines, when you interact with them, they really do have their own journey that they're taking you on. And I think of it sometimes like a roller coaster ride, where once you get on it, you're on it, and you'll be on it until it's done, and it will take you where it does. So we emphasize that by learning how to first go into your inner worlds, into your unconscious realms through drumming journeys, being able to then connect with a power animal. That's the first thing you do in the drumming journey. You're connecting with this inner guidance system, and you're going where it goes. You're being led by your inner guidance. And then with lucid dreaming and those types of experiences, you get in there. And a lot of times people think, once I have a lucid dream, which is a dream in which you know beyond a doubt that you're dreaming within the dream, once I have a lucid dream, I'm going to be able to have complete control. And I always say, you don't have control, but you have agency. You have a heightened level of agency. However, there's this other force that meets you, and you can think of it as the universe, as your higher self, as your subconscious mind. But there's this other force you're interacting with, and it becomes a really beautiful relationship where you're learning and growing through having this level of lucidity and awareness in that space and interacting with that inner part of yourself. So by doing these works, the similarity is that you are going into these spaces where it's non-ordinary reality. It's the unknown in some ways, and you're exploring them. But then to be able to explore them consciously, you do that by really connecting with this inner guidance system and then seeing how you interact with the third consciousness of the plant medicines.
Just out of curiosity, what did you experience first? Lucid dreaming, drum journeys, or plant medicine journeys?
Yeah, I'll speak to that first. So I feel really blessed to have been raised by my mom, who's an amazing shamanic teacher and healer. And so from a young age, I was going on drumming journeys with her,
Okay.
and I traveled too with her as she went to all of these sacred sites around the world to study with Indigenous elders. I was right there with her as a child. So I got to really experience what it was like to be in cultures where the dream time and ordinary reality were valued in equal measure. And so I got to see and grow up with that, which I feel like is quite unique for somebody coming from, our American culture.
Yes.
And then when I came into my 20s, which I was always an avid dreamer, but when I came into my 20s is when I really got into lucid dreaming as a practice, which it's a skill that you really build up in life, and then just took off in those realms. And I really believe because I was primed through drumming journeys, through understanding how to go into my psyche in those ways, the lucid dreaming skills developed so rapidly.
How about for you, Norma?
For me, from a young age, I had a lot of dreams and also had a mystical consciousness. So I was a visionary, able to see beings walking across the lawn to me or interact with fairy type beings that were very present and real. And I was so blessed to have a family, and especially a grandmother who was also very psychic. She was a medical healer on our native reservation that we lived right next door to, and was called upon by the tribe for her psychic abilities too. And so she was an amazing person that I was nurtured by and trained by as a child to value what was happening to me and not be afraid of it. So many people don't have that kind of nurturance and get afraid and shut down that part of themselves. But I was encouraged to keep developing it and to own my mystical access and to value it. So by the time I was 17, my whole community tribe came together and said, we see you as a person with a gift and we support you in pursuing it. So I knew I was to be a spiritual leader, healer of some type from the time I was young. So I pursued the traditional route given in our society, which was going to study religion and psychology and becoming a psychologist and a minister and doing all the work in the academic realms. But I was also simultaneously so hungry for authentic experience from wisdom elders. So from the time I was in my 20s, I started traveling all over the world to find that. And came into drumming journey in my late 20s, and it seemed like such an important tool that it really became my major way of guiding people into the altered states. Although I'm also like a certified hypnotherapist and all of the Western ways of doing it, but I find the drumming journey to be most helpful because I'm not then the authority figure saying, now do this, now do that, as happens in hypnosis. But I'm drumming and I give people instructions ahead of time as to how to do it, but then they're following their own timing and the response to their own imagination and their own unconscious, and they learn their inner pathway. So it's a great tool for teaching psychonavigation.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. I find it so fascinating. I've had so many people on my show over the years who like had a parent, a grandparent, a great grandparent who was psychic or I like to say tuned in, and that talent kind of passed down. Nisha, I'm just curious. You got brought up in a very unique way. Like when you had to go to school and interact with other kids, like was it challenging or like were they like really fascinated by all the things you got to do with your family?
That's a great question. I feel like really there was this time when my mom and we were in Machu Picchu and up, very high in the sky. And I told her, okay, I need to go over here by the ledge. And how old was I?
8 years old.
I was 8 years old. I was like, I need to go over here by the ledge and you have to stay over there and you can't see me. And so she was nervous about that, right? Her child on the cliff's edge, but she let me do it. And so I walked over. And then when I came back to her, I told her I had had this whole experience with these beings, these celestial beings from another dimension, and talked to them about how I needed to go into a time of forgetting of the greatness of who I was to be able to have like a normal kid's life. And so that really, like, I feel in some ways, of course, I was still connected to all of these things and still having the mother I did, still having the upbringing I did. But I had a time of being able to also just be in this mundane world as a child, which I think is important for everybody.
Yeah.
And still having very mystical experiences of like star beings visiting me as a child and whatnot.
Wow.
Then coming back into it, in my teens and in my 20s and having these moments of initiation too, which I think are very much missing in our culture, rites of passage. But again, having the mother that I did, we had these marked moments of rites of passage into the next stage, next chapter of my life. And so then through those and through my coming back into the deeper spiritual connections, I was able to come back into that fullness of experience. and having had the also very like simple, mundane experience of just being a kid and playing with the kids. So it wasn't like I was talking to them about like, yeah, this shaman in Brazil told me blah, blah, blah when I was on the playground. But I'm so grateful too that I never had a time when I really felt like I needed to rebel strongly against all of it, which people often ask, like being brought up in this way. I was always connected in this through line to working with my inner worlds and especially my dream time, and working with the journey to completion system of knowing how to delve into shadow material that appeared all through my life and transmute it. So I feel really blessed to have had those skills and tools. And then now coming back into this chapter of being able to fully share all of these things with everyone that we teach and talk to and write books through that medium.
Wonderful. 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 Thank you so much. And a perfect lead into what we're going to talk about when we come back from this commercial break, which is shadow work. Because I kind of feel like what I read in the book, your approach to shadow work is slightly different, I think, than what's commonly out there. So I'd like to talk about that and talk a little bit about what your journey to completion methodology is, Norma. Okay?
Great. Okay.
So everyone, please stay tuned. You're listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. We're speaking this hour with Norma and Nisha Burton, co-authors of the book, Navigating Liminal Realms, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Misalignment within your sales team or with a client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Have you ever wondered what truly lies beneath the calm? I'm Jacinta Yang. Join me every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Talk Radio NYC as we explore healing, self-discovery, and the space where science meets spirits to help you find peace in a busy world. Take a deep breath and tune in to Beneath the Calm, where every conversations guide you back to the calm within.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
So Norma, in the book, you talk about shadow work, but you talk about it a little bit differently than I think most people out there talk about shadow work. What's your approach to this idea of shadow?
Yes, I'm a Jungian trained depth psychologist, therapist, and then also having worked with, in particular with the Huichol, that's spelled Huichol, people in central Mexico for over 20 years. They really, through working with peyote, delve into the shadow material and help people to transform their lives with plant medicines. And so I've had a lot of good training in it, but at a certain point in my 40s, I looked into all the different ways that people were teaching about the shadow, and I felt that there wasn't quite the adequate tool that was simple enough for people to use and yet adequate in its reflection of how the unconscious really works. So that's when I delved deeply into a period of introspection and creation of the journey to completion. So it's a methodology that I think accurately helps people to explore their wounded places, the material within each person that we all have that's repressed, and pushed down out of our awareness because it's too painful to know at first. And just like our bodies, if we get wounded, builds a scab around it, so our unconscious builds up a protective set of defense mechanisms around these places where we're wounded. So they can be difficult to get at. And it takes patience, as you were saying earlier, and allowing the unconscious to present its material at the pace that's right for the individual. I've seen so many therapists, because they can push over people's boundaries, push them too quickly, leading to dire consequences. People can become suicidal, and it feels unmanageable to them. So you have to be careful to go at the pace that the unconscious is guiding you. So here's where, again, Nisha was talking about the inner guidance system. So that's a first step, that I get people hooked up with their own inner guidance system. That's key.
Yeah.
And they're setting their own intention that's the right amount of exploration for that period of time, finding the right edge of what they're needing to understand and heal for that time of their life, because it's like layers of the onion. We have to go layer by layer to all the way to, as that movie talked about, the inception point, So that's what I help people do, to move at the pace that's right for them. And then going into the shadow, I created this unique approach that, as you were reading in the book, that deals with that we all have an outer shadow and inner shadow.
Right.
And one time I was teaching this to people at the Boston Psychoanalytic Institute, and they said they felt like I came up with a missing link in Jung. So it is quite unique. And so I have a method of helping people to work over a long period of time to study their shadow. And that's what you were talking about earlier too. Jung said, we should not come to premature foreclosure, but hold the complexity long enough so that we can come through to true maturity or integration. So people have to, though, have help and have a structure in which they can be brave to study the shadow long enough until we have gathered all the data and the fullness of the information that we need. And then it's like we have a fulcrum to shift the whole pattern.
Right. And I've seen it so much in just my own work with me and my wife, working with people that, it's like sometimes as an external person, you can kind of see where someone's like core issue is, but they don't see it themselves. But like, if you push them towards it, they actually, they can't deal with it. They can't do it. And just having patience and trusting the process, that when they're ready, it will come up and they'll be able to deal with it. It's been a real lesson in trust, that a person's and trust in people's process, even if it's not what we think it should be.
Yes, that's so true. As you said in your blog intro, that was so apropos to the shadow work, right?
Yeah.
Because there is an inner guidance system in each person, Lots of times people fall prey to authority figures telling them what to do, or even cult figures who are trying to control their transformational process. So it's really important for people to be guided into connection with their own inner guidance system.
So you mentioned about an inner shadow and an outer shadow. What's the difference?
Right? So the outer shadow are the people outside of us that trigger us. They bring up our awareness of, ooh, this is a wounded place in me. And then your inner shadow is your feelings and your behaviors in response. Right? So that's a good way to start studying the shadow, to be able to observe the people that are triggering you, and then note their qualities and how they do what they do, and then your inner response to it and your actions in response to it too. So I set up a chart and have people study the people currently triggering them, and then take it back in their lives into their past. And so we set up this whole connecting the dots study.
You have a nice little chart here on the journey to completion map, which it's not going to come through too well here, but you kind of have on a circle, and on the top is ordinary reality, and on the bottom is dream time, and a line through the center, and at the sort of the transition points between ordinary and dreamtime, you have threshold guardians.
Mhm.
What are threshold guardians?
Yes. So as you pointed out, the circle is the pathway. We always are following cycles and circles on planet
Mhm.
Earth. So yes, you're going in this clockwise direction where you get a calling to do what? To go into the underworld, to go into the dream time, into your unconscious, and study and collect this information about yourself.
And just to be clear, dream time could be a
Right.
lucid dream, it could be a drumming journey, it could be a plant medicine ceremony.
Exactly, right? Those are actually the ways to get into the dream time, which is a place that we all go. We go every night, but it's a vast terrain that humans have access to that actually is a geography, just like dwelling in ordinary reality on planet Earth. And it includes the greater cosmos. So the dream time is the realm of all potentiality that we get to journey into. So you're crossing over that middle line in the center of the circle, like you pointed out, you're crossing from ordinary reality as you have constructed it into the dream time, which is the realm where you're going to get deconstructed. The structures that you've built in your psyche are going to get deconstructed so that you build a better, more adequate structure so that you can use power more impeccably. So we've all got to go into the dream time to get deconstructed and reconstructed. And you're asking about the threshold guardians, right at that point where you're crossing over into the dream time, there will always be threshold guardians, which are a momentary showing of the shadow that you're going to encounter later. It's a foreshadowing of the shadow, so it can be scary for people. I mean, in the dream work, there is the experience that a lot of people have of being in sleep paralysis. So that's an example of threshold guardian working, and Nisha can
So
talk
in
more
the
about
freeze
that.
mode
Yeah.
or stuck in some way.
Right. And just a moment before you go into that, because I just want to say that the threshold guardians are not meant to stop you, though. They're just giving you a moment of decision and commitment. You know, are you really going to go forth in trust and enter the dream time and explore what you have to? So you look at the threshold guardians. Carlos Castaneda talked about this. You look over your left shoulder into the face of them, the face of death, he said, and you say, I see you, but I'm going forth here. I'm going to go on into this, and I'm going to trust. But you
It's
note,
almost like a bit of resistance that
yes,
causes us to build the psychic or emotional muscle to kind of push through.
exactly. And the threshold guardians will stop a person if it's not the right time for them to go. So we can trust that. I always, encourage people to pause at the threshold and let it stop them if it's supposed to, because it's not the right time if they get stopped. But on the other hand, if they're meant to do it, then their strong intent will come forth. And then we do a ceremony to set the intent right there at the threshold. And then it's like Carlos Castaneda again said, a stake in the ground. You're putting a strong intent in place, and then that will get you all the way through. Because I say spirit doesn't want you to get lost in the underworld and to go in there without that strong intent so that you're just left wandering around. No, you're meant to have a clear intent about why you're going in, what you're gathering, and what you're going to come out with. So it gets you all the way through.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and within that, like my mom was saying, the dream time is another space that we can encounter the shadow. And what I love again about dream work and lucid dreaming work is that it goes at your own pace. So you can trust that too, just like you do with the shadow work in waking reality. These are tools that allow you to connect with your inner pacing. And so a lot of people do have nightmares and the sleep paralysis experience, which is one in which you are starting to wake up, but your physical body is immobilized. And this naturally happens every time we go to sleep. Our bodies are immobilized so that we don't act out our dreams. We don't start running around. But normally what happens is that your bodies stops being immobilized and then you wake up. Sometimes that happens in reverse, where you are waking up, but your body is still not able to move. So it's already a very frightening experience. And on top of that, it's often accompanied by seeing a being there at the bottom of your bed or holding you down. So it's a very scary experience for many people, but we teach about how actually in that space, one, it's kind of like a threshold guardian saying, okay, are you really ready to enter into this lucid dream space? Are you really ready to enter into an out-of-body experience, which you can have from a sleep paralysis experience? Here's the guardian at the threshold seeing if you're ready. And so then if you're able to transform that fear, know that you can't be physically harmed and have boundaries, first and foremost, with any energies that you're feeling that you don't want in your space, then you can leap into that realm of lucidity and power. So that's what it's all about. And that's what nightmares are about too. They're showing us these past traumas, these shadows in this symbolic form. And they're saying, hey, we're calling you in a very strong way to look at these things, both in waking reality and in the dream time. Are you ready? And you can choose to not answer that call, or it might not be the right time. You might not be resourced enough. But then once you're ready to take it on in a lucid way, it's so beautiful because it can be really completely transformed in pair with the shadow work and waking reality. Doing the dream time lucid journeys and nightmares really is such a profound tool for healing wounds.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, we got to take our last break of the show. When we come back, I have a few more questions about the interrelationship between the dream time, the plant medicine work, the drumming journeys, and how it all works together, okay? All right, so everyone, please stay tuned. You are listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, and we'll be right back with our guests, Norma and Nisha Burton, co-authors of the book, Navigating Liminal Realms, to finish it all up in just a moment.
On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
I have so many questions for you. An hour is not enough time to get through everything, but I do have a question about the interrelationship between these different endeavors of lucid dreaming, drum journeys, and working with plant and psychedelic medicines. One of the things that I've seen is often when we engage in medicine work, the psychedelic or plant medicine work, that it's not uncommon to have nightmares, as you were talking about before, and very bizarre dreams afterwards. Why is that?
The shadow will stalk you. The shadow material is always wanting to be noticed and dealt with. It's like I say, it's like a little kid pulling on your coat saying, I'm here, you've got to look at me. You can't ignore me. And the plant medicines, I think, are set up to take people into their shadow material, right? So that's why it's good to do the precursor trainings before diving off the deep end into the psychedelics, because they will take you into your shadow material. And it's good to be trained in how to interact with it and to know yourself better before going into it. Then you'll get a lot more out of the intense interaction that's accelerated in the plant medicine.
Nisha, I could ask you a million questions about a whole show just around the lucid dreaming aspect. But if someone wants to start to engage in lucid dreaming, and it's something that I've tried to do in the past many times, and I think I've only ever had one dream that I knew I was dreaming in the dream, and it's something I've always wanted to develop more of. But how would you recommend someone to start on that path?
Yes, that's an excellent question. So again, I talk about how it's a skill. And some people think, oh, some people are just naturally lucid dreamers. I can't do it. But no, anybody can lucid dream if they learn these practices and do those. And really, it's about the practices you do while awake to train your mind toward lucidity, because it is a unique brain activity sleep state that doesn't normally occur, where when we're typically in REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex, many parts of it are turned off, are powered down. And so you're turning back on these parts of the prefrontal cortex that are the questioning mind, that are the reasoning mind. And so how you do that is, while you're awake, you ask yourself, could I be dreaming? Because in dreams, we think, oh, it's so obvious it's a dream, but we don't ask ourselves that. And then we don't realize it until after we've woken up. And we're like, oh, of course, the pink elephant in the middle of the room should have shown me that it was a dream, but I didn't question that. So you're training your mind to be constantly questioning, could I be dreaming? And the next thing that you're doing is you're performing these actions, which are called state checks, that help you to verify whether or not you're dreaming. Because again, for a lucid dream, you need to know beyond a doubt that you are dreaming within the dream. So one that I always give people, and a lot of people know, is to look at your hands and flip them back and forth. You do this while awake. And if they stay the same, then you know, okay, I'm awake, I'm not dreaming. But if you're in a dream, they'll maybe have an extra finger, they'll glow. One time I had my hands turned into lobster claws. So I knew I was dreaming in that dream. So what you do to cultivate the practice of lucid dreaming every day is you question, could I be dreaming? Especially when you encounter situations, people, objects that often appear in your dreams. And then you do a state check. You perform a state check to verify whether or not you're dreaming. And then if you're not dreaming, you continue on in your day. What happens is you're training your mind to be doing that neural pathway of, every time I encounter this thing or I do this thing, I ask myself, could I be dreaming? I do a state check. So then when you're in a dream, eventually what happens is that you have that question, you perform the state check, and it verifies you're dreaming within the dream. And then you click on to full lucidity, where the dream's characteristics change. You have this level of agency, and it feels as real as waking reality. So that's why I tell people, if you're unsure if you've had a lucid dream, you probably haven't. You've probably had steps toward a lucid dream, like a very vivid dream or semi-lucid, where you're kind of aware. But once you become fully lucid, it's an entirely different experience of the dream time that's very rich and alive.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So it's kind of like you're creating the habit or the routine while you're awake of checking, am I awake? Am I dreaming? Am I awake? Am I dreaming? And you do that enough times when you're awake, and then you'll naturally do that when you're dreaming, and then that's how you'll create. Beautiful.
That's exactly it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I can give a brief example of how that happened for me, where one of my things that commonly occurred in my dreams was that I would like go to a public bathroom and it'd be really gross. So that was a dream sign for me, which is kind of a funny one. But then I went into a bathroom one day that I thought it was a day, and I thought, okay, every time I do this, I perform a state check, but it seems so real, so mundane. So I was like, of course I'm not dreaming. But I went ahead and I flipped my hands back and forth. And sure enough, I had an extra finger. And so I was like, aha, I know I'm dreaming. The light switch clicked on. I was able to achieve full lucidity and then flew up out of the bathroom, out of my house, into the cosmos, and had an incredible lucid dream experience where I was speaking with a dragon guide. So that just shows how even the most mundane dreams can be transformed into lucid experiences if you're doing these practices.
Right, right. Norma, in the book, you kind of talk about how the two of you wrote this book really as a guide because so many people are engaging in plant medicine and psychedelic work, and they're not really prepared and they're not really well educated on it. What would you recommend if someone's curious, they're hearing about it, their friend went down to Peru and did ayahuasca and all this stuff? How would you recommend people get started on this path?
Well, I recommend that they would work with us. I mean, we have groups online, and you can have an individual boost session,
Mhm.
and we lead retreats. So it's important to connect with people that are guides that you can trust.
Right, right. That have a
Guide them.
lineage, that have experience.
Right, right. And so it's important to do, as I was saying, the work inside of yourself leading up to plant medicine and then the integrative work afterwards. And people, like I just went to the big psychedelic science conference in Denver where there were 12,000 people there, and
Yeah.
everybody's admitting, hey, we've gone too fast. We really need to back up and emphasize to people that they've got to do the inner work leading up to this and a lot of integration work afterwards. So I really emphasize to people, slow it down, and work with your dreams and the material they're presenting, and then be in good therapy. So if they want to be in touch with us, we'd love to talk to people and work with them. And we have a lot of ways available, including our online courses that they can have a passive way of working on themselves to start with, and then work with us in person.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I guess this is one of those cases where going slow is the fastest way to go. So,
Right.
so how would people learn about you? How do they find you? Where do they go online?
Yeah, so our main website is luciddreaminglucidliving.com. On that website, you find links to both of our books, the Oracle Deck and book, as well as the Navigating Liminal Realms. That's also where we have our online courses, the passive ones, and the ability to get in contact with us to do the one-on-one work or the group work. NormaBurton.com is the other website specifically for the journey to completion and the shadow work. So that's the way to reach out directly to Norma. And then our Instagram is the same thing of lucid dreaming, lucid living. And that's where we post a lot of bite-sized chunks about how to lucid dream and how to engage with these psycho-navigation practices. And our YouTube channel is the
Whoops. I guess she was about to say their YouTube channel is the same, Lucid Dreaming, Lucid Living. Looks like their computer froze or something happened, so we lost them.
practices.
You're back. Okay, you froze for a minute.
Oh no, where'd I leave off?
Well, I said you froze at your YouTube channel, so I told the audience I think you were going to say Lucid Dreaming, Lucid Living is also the YouTube channel. Yes,
exactly, and that's where to find more long form content. So any of those spaces are great spaces to reach out to us, to connect with us, and we'd love to work with all of you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nisha, Norma, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I could literally do like a full day just talking with the two of you. I so love what you do and what you're all about. So thank you for doing the work that you do, because I know it is very, very needed.
Thank you for having us.
It's been great to meet you and to feel our synchronicities.
Yes, totally. And please, 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 if you ever come to New York City, you must let me know so that we can meet up. And if I make it out, where in Oregon are you? Near Portland or Eugene?
Ashland. And we do come to the East Coast quite often, so definitely we'll look you up, and it would be great to meet you in person.
Yeah, please, please. It's so funny. I'm not going to be there, but an organization I'm involved with, they're doing an event in Ashland in November.
Wow. Is it the Dream Group or?
No, it's the Evolutionary Business Council.
Oh, wonderful.
And they're tagging on to the end of a joint venture JVX Live thing that's happening in November. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be there this year. But yes, if I make it out to Ashland, I will definitely look you up, and please come back.
I would love to have our paths cross.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule for coming in. I really appreciate it. Once again, Norma Nisha Burton, authors of the book, Navigating Liminal Realms. Highly, highly recommend it. Thank you all. Thank you, Norma Nisha. And of course,
so much for having us.
And of course, thank you, my loyal listeners, for tuning in each week. Without you, there is no show. I truly appreciate it. And don't forget, if you did miss any part of today's show, you can always catch the replay on talkradio.nyc, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Twitch. Thank you all for tuning in. Take care. We will talk to you all next week.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate,